PhD College of Technology, Coimbatore in 2002, PhD in Mechanical Engineering from Osmania University, Hyderabad in 2011, and postdoctoral research in 3D printing at Milwaukee School of Engineering, USA in 2012. He has supervised more than 30 MTech projects and produced 4 PhDs and guiding 4 more PhD theses. He has published more than 70 research papers in national and international conferences and journals. He has filed one international patent and two Indian patents in the area of 3D printing. He is instrumental in setting up rapid prototyping laboratory at NIT Warangal. He started MTech program in additive manufacturing in collaboration with Central Manufacturing Technology Institute CMTI Bangalore. First time in India of its kind. He has established a world-class metal 3D printing facility at NIT Warangal under EQIP third grant. He has conducted more than 15 training programs across India and trained around 900 participants in the area of 3D printing. He received Young Engineer of the Year 2009 award from the Government of Andhra Pradesh and the Institute of Engineers India. He has executed sponsored R&D project worth 1.24 crore rupees in the area of 3D printing. He is the life member of ISTE, IE and RPSI societies. He visited countries like Australia, Sweden, Singapore, Finland, France and USA. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Now it's to hand over the session, Dr. N.M. Ravikumar, 10th session to handle the topic 3D printing in surgical planning in implant fabrication. So hand over the
Yeah,
session.
yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Mani. Actually,
Thank you.
I don't know
Thank you.
like it's happening, but anyway, nevertheless,
Okay.
actually, yeah. I hope you are able to. I am sharing my screen. Are you able to see my
Yes, sir.
screen? And audio is also clear.
Yes, yes, sir.
Or
Yes, sir.
any?
Everything okay, sir.
Yeah. Now, are you able to see my PPT right now on
Yes,
the
sir.
screen?
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes, sir.
Then thank you for the just. So I want to ask you the apologize because of some technical glitch. I don't know what is happening, but anyway, now we are comfortably into the meeting. And now the topic, today's topic, and in fact, I would like to thank Dr. Mani giving me the second talk on this STTP. That this time I'm going to talk on exclusively the personal experience, our personal experience with the doctors. So far, what you have been doing service to the medical community. So, with the help of 3D printing technology, maybe in terms of planning the surgery, these 3D models or implantation of these implants or the prosthetics. But if you see the conventional way of doing their doctors, normally what they do and what is the speciality of 3D printing it's going to offer for them. So that is the talk today, and my personal experience with the doctors, and that I'm going to share with you. So like this, I have planned for this another 1.5 hour of time. So the introduction to biomaterials. So any bio application, we have to talk about the biomaterial is the main important thing for any bio, especially if you're talking about the implants or so. For the planning the surgery, it may not much important, but if you are implanting the medical things into human body, so definitely we need to search for a good bio compatible material. Let me talk with some of the introduction to the biomaterials, and then how we were probably the earlier speakers. I don't know whether they touched up this medical, how we are going to use the medical interfacing with the 3D printing or additive manufacturing. But anyway, I will give you some glimpse of it, how you can integrate your CT, MRI, or any other medical imaging data to the 3D printing technology. So that is also, and then here, if you can see my, I'm going to discuss here, say, 6 cases among around 20 cases we have been working with the doctors. But today I'm going to give you a 6 medical cases, our personal experience with the doctors, especially one case I'm going to present here is a cranioplasty. But normally, if you see these words, so then you will bit annoyed. Why? Because these terms are from Greek or Latin. Normally, the medical terminology, the medical words normally it will be derived from the Greek and Latin, so that's what you may have a bit difficulty to pronounce. But anyway, here cranioplasty is the normally whatever I'm going to talk all these six cases. It may be pertaining to the head, and head means a skull, means head bone means bones means it's basically a skull. So we can divide the skull into three parts. One is lower jaw called mandible. That is you have lower jaw, upper jaw, right? And other than your lower jaw, mandible, normally lower jaw called as a mandible, and upper jaw is called as a maxilla. And apart from this mandible and maxilla means lower jaw and upper jaw. So rest of the skull bone you will call as a cranium bone, or exactly if you are talking about the bone which will protect our brain, so that is going to be the cranial bone. So then one case I'm going to discuss how this 3D printing technology helpful for modeling and analyzing the cranium implant for the cranioplasty surgeon. So that's what first case. And second case, how this technology helpful for placing an implant for the dental doctor or the implantologist in particular, like so he wants to put some two implants in the lower jaw of a patient. Then how this technology is helpful for the kind of application. And then mandibular distraction osteogenesis, this is one of the surgical procedure normally if you want to do some kind of a reconstructive bone reconstructive surgery. So you have a very good developments in the medical procedures also. So then one among is a mandibular distraction osteogenesis. Then how that 3D printing is helpful in this for basically a bone reconstruction surgery. So you can put it in a single word. So that is the one. And while talking about these cases, I will be giving the description of the case. And of course, one cancerous case or the tumor cancerous tumor case, amyloblast blastic for fibroma of mandible means that is one of the lower jaw of one patient affected with a cancerous tumor. So then we need to cut and put some implant to after removing that cancerous bone with the lower jaw. So that's the fourth case. And fifth case, the TMJ, that is temporomandibular joint ankylosis. Ankylosis is a kind of where a patient is having some kind of fusing of these joint. I mean, normally you have a lower jaw, upper jaw, and then you have a normal person should be having a normal articulation of your jaw. But there is a problem with this patient. By birth, she got some problem by birth itself, and her TMJ got fused, and which we need to do operation for this. Of course, the two phases of surgery she requires, and then how 3D printing and additive manufacturing helpful for this case. I am going to discuss that fifth case also. And last case is a basilacio integrated implant. So this is indigenously we designed and fabricated one implant through metal 3D printing technology called powder bed fusion system with the titanium 64 as the material. So then we have implanted successfully. So we have done implantation these two cases successfully. And then one more case also recently, but that I didn't include here for this presentation. But anyway, I'm going to talk about all these cases maybe next 45 minutes or 1 hour or so. So then, like, what could be the future of this? So far, whatever I'm talking about, the skull part, the skull bone. Maybe if you take orthopedician, so again, he may operate on the knee joint or hip joint. Or any other finger joints or so basically, so these are the substitutes or the alternatives for the bone replacement basically. But in future which we are going to even replace an organ. So and some extent this is also true, but not like a future the complex organs like a heart or a liver or a lungs or a kidneys or so. But some simple organs is it's already done. But that also I want to conclude my session with the future directions and then some challenges that it's going to address by the argon printing or 3D bioprinting. So that's what I have planned for this lecture. So then let us talk about, as we know that if you are talking about the implantation, so biomaterial is important. So then why biomaterial? Then what is biomaterial? So biomaterial, of course, by definition, it is the synthetic material. So that is used to replace or restore the function to a body tissue. Either it can be a continuously or intermittently it is in contact with the body fluid. So basically, it may be continuously or intermittently it's going to be in contact with the body fluid. So that is the basic thing a biomaterial should be. So of course it's a man-made material. So then if you are talking about the biomaterial, the first and foremost thing, it should be biocompatible. What do you mean by a biocompatibility? So biocompatibility means it should not elicit any kind of adverse response from the body, vice versa. Means once you implant this body into the human, so it should not give any reaction to the body, right? So that's the thing. And not only giving the reaction to the body or in general any tissue or in general to any organ or the bone or whatever it is, the substitute which you are targeting. And at the same time, it should not be a toxic, means it should not be poisonous, and it should not be non-carcinogenic, means it should not be cancerous effect. It should not have any cancerous effect that the material should possess. And of course, not only this biocompatibility and the non-carcinogenic and non-toxic, it also should possess the physical property and mechanical property of the body tissue, maybe bone, maybe soft tissue or hard tissue or anything, but it should equally enough to have the physical property and the mechanical property, right? So that's a basic requirement, and it should amicably formed or amicably machined. But the difficulty of machining in the first lecture also we have discussed the difficulties in the traditional manufacturing, especially when you have a complex products. Of course, the complex product in the universe is definitely going to be the human anatomy. Why? Because it's a God's design. So definitely it's going to, and that it is unique, right? So then under these circumstances, additive manufacturing is playing a vital role. So with that, and even when you can say the biomaterial is the best or the ideal biomaterial, when you can say, so your chemical composition in such a way that it should not give any tissue reaction to your body, and it should be an excellent degradation, means if you are using your biomaterial as a metal, and it should be more corrosive in resistance, and if you are using a biopolymer, and it should be more resistant towards your biological degradation, so that should be having such kind of a property, and it should accept the strength to sustain the cyclic loadings. Normally you have some knee implant or hip implant, so you will be having a cyclic loads which it will be falling on that. So then it should sufficient to bear such kind of a cyclic loading, and it should have a low modulus to minimize the bone reception. So bone respiration is also should be at the minimum, and wear resistance is also another. Otherwise, if it is not more wear resistant, so it will create some wear debris, right? So this is what an ideal biomaterial must possess all these properties. So then if you talk about biomaterials, then so you are putting some 4 or 5 constraints. So because of that constraints, not all the materials in the universe it won't become a biomaterial. Maybe 10% or 20% of the materials which it is there in the universe maybe fully biocompatible, or whatever the criteria which we will be talking about. And coming to the 3D printing, so again maybe 5 to 10% materials only you could the biomaterials you could process through 3D printing or additive manufacturing. So to name a few biopolymers, like you have polyethylene, polypropylene, PET, polyamides, PTFE, polyesters, and polyethylene, PVC, PMMA, that is polymethyl methacrylate, and silicons and hydrogels. So which you can see almost every part of your human anatomy, either in terms of bone joints or knee joints or blood vessels, or even ophthalmology, means your eyes also, you have some substitute material like silicon, with the ophthalmologist can be using it here. And of course hydrogels also can be used by your ophthalmologist. So apart from your other suture and other applications, and of course if you put it each and every, so if somebody is interested, then I can share this also. This is from handbook of materials. So my intention is like you can even have a good number of biopolymers which it will cater to almost each and every part of the human body, the biopolymers is about. And then coming to the metals, you have a biometals and the alloys like 316L stainless steel, and it's a fracture fixation, and then stents or surgical instruments, and titanium family, titanium alloy, like it may be commercially pure titanium or aluminum vanadium or aluminum niobium, and you have a niobium zirconium, and you have a molybdenum zirconium and ferrous, and you have a bone and joint replacement, and fracture fixation, dental implants, pacemakers for your heart, kind of a stuff, and encapsulations. So these some of the applications of these kind of a bio metals or the alloys, these titanium alloy. And of course cobalt chrome is another biocompatible metal, cobalt chrome molybdenum, and you have a chromium nickel chromium molybdenum. So you have bone and joint replacement, dental implants and dental restorations, and heart valves. And of course, nickel, titanium alloy and bone plates, or the stents or orthodontic wires. And of course, gold also used for the dental restorations, and silver products for antibacterial agents. And of course, platinum and iridium. So you have electrodes are made out of this. And of course you have a dental restorations, like you have amalgams, like it can be a mercury silver tin based dental restorations. So to name a few biometals or the alloys. Of course you do have ceramics and glasses, like alumina is the one best one, and zirconia is another one. And calcium phosphate, like almost it's a bone repair or the bone replacement, kind of like a hydroxyapatite is a one example for this. And you have a bioactive glasses also, and then you have porcelain, something like a ceramic clay, right? So and carbons also, you have head valves and other dental and other devices, and of course you do have a biocomposites, but maybe very few. So it may be BIS GMA kind of a quartz or silica filler, or PMMA, that is a polymer, and which we have discussed previously, and maybe glass filled with this PMMA, so that you have a very good dental restorations, or the dental cement. So these are some of the bio composites in the is available. And let us talk about the 3D printing. So how do you start your medical application of 3D printing? Of course, so you don't have a CAD model here, then we need to start with the CTR MRI data. But CTR MRI data now you got, but previously, okay, before that, let me give you some applications of this 3D printing. Why medical is important here? Like, so if you see the statistics from the Holler, so the first place goes to consumer electronics and the consumer products, 21.8%. And second place goes to the motor vehicles, that is automobile and automotive together. So it is 18.6. So it is almost on par with the second application with automobile. So medical is also 16.4. So then one can understand the importance of this medical application of 3D printing. So then one can understand that. So then if you see the hype curve or the expectation versus time, so then your if you put all your medical applications in this hype curve or the Gartner curve, so where the orthopedicians or the early users, so people have been using this technology, and almost very soon it's coming to the plateau of productivity also. But whereas dental is at the most hyped or the most expected application in case of medical. And of course bioprinting and medical research is coming slowly, but it has to go a long way to reach here. Maybe minimum it may take 15 to 20 years, especially if you are talking about the bio printing or the organ printing. So when it will be reached here, maybe not less than 15 years or so. But so anyway, so with this background, so then how do you establish your 3D printing application with the medical domain, then of course, as we know that 3D printing is a medical, the digital driven technology, then we have to start with digital data. And of course, now you are comfortable, you will get a digital data. But before, to the computers, you don't have the digital data, right? People used to manage only with the X-rays. But the problem with the X-ray, you can get only the single cross section at a time, and it will be only, you don't have a soft copy. Every time we need to take a printout on the film. But whereas now, thanks to the computers, so now you have a computer tomography called CT for examining the bone, bony kind of structures. And of course, you have a MRI, that is magnetic resonance imaging, for the soft tissues like a brain, or say lungs, or say your kidney or liver. So such kind of soft material, your region of interest, then you will be asked to undergo an MRI scanner, right? So MRI scan test. But of course, whatever it may be, so CT or MRI, then it will be starting with the medical diagnostic data, and further you're going to get only the two-dimensional cross sections. But nowadays, even CBCT can give you even directly 3D data also. But basically, we need to segregate the tissues. Like, say, if you take so the chest part, say if I scan the chest part, so then I can get my ribs information, I can get the lungs information, then I can get the blood vessels or the nerves information. So that is only after processing this data. But the raw data from the CT or MRI scan data, basically it's black and white images. So you cannot understand, like based on the brightness, then you, but that's very tedious job, right? So then one must have some kind of medical image processing software to enhance, to segregate, no, your bones or your soft tissues. And further, why I want to do it, so sometimes I may be interested only the lungs part. So being a COVID patient, so then we need to check for his lungs, the infection, the level of infection of his lungs, right? So then in that case, we may not be interested about the ribs and other tissues, but you may be interested only for the lungs. So then, as for your region of interest, so this software will give you the life to the black and white images. And of course, if you connect to the 3D printing technology, of course, you can get much more life to the black and white images. So if somebody is interested, what are the softwares that we are going to use it for the medical image processing software? So we have been using Mimic software for doing this job. And of course, you may have other softwares also. If somebody is looking for an open source software, so this is an open source software with a free of cost. You can download 3D Slicer, and which it will almost do the capabilities of the Mimics or a 3D Doctor or a Simpleware. These are the well-known softwares. Of course, you have other softwares also. So basically, any medical image processing software which will start with the CT, MRI, black and white images in a DICOM format, and further your 3D printer requires STL file. So then you can convert as STL file, and then you can even create an interface to the CAD data. So then your CT, MRI data can be converted as a CAD model, and further, if you want to do some prosthetic, customized prosthetic design, so then you can take it to the CAD software, or vice versa. So then you can create an interface to the CAD system to your medical data, or even a surgeon can do a simulation. So he or she made some kind of orthopedic joint, so some hip joint as design, and the doctor can simulate before going to the actual surgery, and even he can do a 3D computer model can be generated, and an orthopedician can do a finite element analysis, or a cardiac surgeon can do a CFD analysis, right? So you can do a lot of stuff on these medical data. And of course, you can make a physical 3D model, or the bio model for surgical planning, or a surgical rehearsal, or implant placement, or whatever it is. So design validation can be done. So you can take a lot of measurements on these from the CT data to the why we need to take the measurements. Of course, we need to design and customized implant for the patient specific data. So then you can do comfortably all this with your this software. So to start with the medical 3D printing process, we have to start with the CT MRI and then getting the images, black and white, two-dimensional images. Further, by using the previous softwares which you have been talking about, so you can reconstruct the 3D model, and then now onwards you know how to do slicing and generating your G code or generating your tool path, and send it to the 3D printer of your choice of your technology and choice of your material, and then your biomodel is ready. So you take this biomodel, use it for your planning the surgery, or just communication or counseling or implant design, or say prosthetic design, or any template design. So you can use it for which application your doctor is intended, right? So then you can use it for that. So you have a lot of softwares and a lot of virtual models. Then still, why we need a physical model at all, right? So then you may have some visualization problems in case of the computer generated models, of course, and then no physical feel once on seeing the computer. Definitely you doesn't have a physical feel, and the area of interest also. But you have all these are physical models. Say for example, if you take this kind of model, so the physical model of one of the patient who required some implant here. So then this is about at least 2 to 3 specialized surgeons should be involved here. Why? Because so it is the maxillofacial. Why? Because it's a maxilla portion, that is the what you call the upper jaw portion, and you have the orbital portion and orbital rim, and your eyeball will be sitting, and then we need to place your eyeball properly here. So your ophthalmologist has to be the part of this surgery. So then the other surgeons also. So then of course patient also, you can show them this is what we are going to do it. So then how that kind of importance, or even this can be divided into 3 parts, your implant and how it's getting designed and fabricated. So you have such kind of touch and feel and the confidence levels of the surgeon before going to the operation theater. So then you can have such kind of a confidence levels. In fact, you can do a rehearsal surgery before going to the operation theater, right? So, and then for surgical teams, communication and educating the patient, just now we are talking about, you can use your physical model, or it can be assisting the surgeon with the diagnosing and surgical planning. So what kind of surgical tools he has to, and where he has to insert, or where he has to cut, and where he has to kind of all surgical planning so can be done well before the surgery he or she wants to start. Or even he or she can do a rehearsal on this model, and then finally come out with the kind of a simulation of the surgery and the best surgical procedure never before. So that is the idea or opportunity for the surgeon if he or she is having a physical model with them. And for creation of the customized prosthetics, that is another area where you can design and fabricate a customized prosthetics also. And of course, you can accurately place your implant. So anyway, we are going to see at least one each of these applications in the. So then, how do you make this physical models? So the old technique, if you go with the subtractive NC milling, but the concerns or the limitations of your NCR CNC, as we know that once the complexity is increased, so as we already mentioned, so the human anatomy is going to be the most complex design or the anatomy that the human being is having. A lot of undercuts, a lot of voids inside, and a lot of internal geometries like neurovascular canals. So it's very difficult to program for NCR CNC. And of course, the kind of sterilization, other stuff which we want to take these models inside the operation theater, then even we need to sterilize them. So then what your 3D printing is going to help you out in this, as we know that in the first session also we are discussing about these the issues of the traditional versus additive, the advantages of additive manufacturing also. So to name a few of the applications of this 3D printing, right from the orthopedic applications, total hip replacement has done. And in this presentation, I am going to cover dental implants, cranioplasty implants, and maxillofacial implants. And of course, apart from this, you may have a biomedical devices, biosensors, biomems devices can be designed and fabricated, and microfluidic devices for bioprocessing and bioseparation, and augmented tangible molecular models for any research and education purpose, or for your anatomy classes also you can print them. And then, so how complex this surgery, even we have been talking in the first lecture also. So any complex surgery, it will make very easy for your 3D printing route once you come. And then of course you may have a lot of oral maxillofacial reconstruction of the bones, or the joint replacement, or the cranial craniofacial surgeons for designing a cranium implant, or it can be a oral maxillofacial, or it can be any ophthalmologist applications, or orthopedic applications, or total hip replacement, so on and so forth. Like, you can find a lot of applications of this 3D printing in medicine. Yeah. And then let me talk about the cases one by one. Maybe the first case is a cranioplasty. That is what we have done for this is a modeling and analysis of the cranium implant. As I already said, like, this is a cranium bone. So the challenge here is the thickness of the skull is not uniform. So that is the challenge here. Like, just like that, you cannot model and fabricate and fixing it this implant. So one of the accident case, he broke his skull part here, and then this everything we have done in a mimic software, and further we have developed these implants, designing the implants through Thematic software. Both are from Materialize software, and then we can get the bony part, and again in the bone you have a different bone density, the scaffold, the Hansfield based on the Hansfield number. So then you can segregate, and then the idea here is, so you have this portion which we need to going to fabricate, design and fabricate an implant here. So then we need to get the exact dimensions of that, and of course how best we can mimic the structure of the patient. And if you see inside, it is not a conventional, it's not a solid skull. If you see, so it will be having a 3 parts again. So you may have a sandwich kind of a structure inside your skull bone. So you have outer bone, inner bone, and in between you have a porous, spongy kind of a bone. So then how do you mimic the conventional process cannot manufacture through CNC kind of a stuff, but only solution will be the 3D printing, how best you can. And one more challenge here is, once you have designed this implant, and if you are trying to fit it here, and you have a cerebrospinal fluid, so that fluid is it's a body fluid, so which it will be generating continuously from the brain, and it will be supplying to the spine. So, but if you are not properly designed and properly fixed this implant onto the skull of a patient, so then there will be a chance of leaking that body fluid called cerebrospinal fluid. So that is another challenge to address here. So then if somebody is interested, then you can refer this journal paper, which we have published in one of the journals. And of course, we have come out with some kind of indigenous algorithms, a nerves-based reconstruction algorithm. So you may get doubt why we want to generate our own algorithm. So your commercial softwares will be having its own specific applications or the limitations. So if you are having some defect is a symmetric defect, so then I can use the mirroring plane, and then I can mirror from the survived portion to the damaged portion, or the trauma, or the disease portion. So I can do it. But if my defect or the fracture is beyond the mid line, so means it will become an asymmetric kind of defect. So in that case, so then we need to develop our own algorithms to do reconstruct these surfaces from the CT data. So that's what we have done. And then, as I already mentioned, your the fluid, cerebrospinal fluid, so it should give a uniform pressure once you fix this implant under the skull. So then we need to carefully find out the fixation points, how many fixation points where we need to fix. So all that simulation stuff so can be done on these models, which are implant as well as model derived from the patient data, right? And we done some material uh, analysis also, like whether as we know that we have a limited biomaterials can be 3D printed. Maybe in the polymer you may have a PMMA or a PEEK, and in the metal titanium. So then we are tested for the evaluation of these materials for this kind of implantation or the fabrication of this implant, and we have further published this algorithm in one of the Act of Bio Engineering and Biomechanics the journal. If somebody is interested, you can visit my website and you can get the full paper also. And further, we can finally, our aim, as I said, like if you see closely your skull, the structure is like this, means you have say your brain will be here, right, and your cerebrospinal fluid will be there here, and where you have a different thickness of this inner bone and than the outer bone. And of course inner bone and outer bone, you have a spongy kind of or a porous kind of a bone. So then how do you manufacture through CNC? Can you manufacture through CNC? You cannot, right? So then the 3D printing is the only the solution for this kind of lattice structure. We are almost mimicking the bone of a patient. That too, it's a patient data only which you have derived, and then you are trying to mimic the bone structure as for the patient data, right? So then further we have published in their journal also. So this is what we have done for the cranium. In fact, we didn't implant it. Why? Because this is an accident case, and that too, it's an emergency case, in fact. So if it is not emergency case, then you have plenty of time to do all this stuff. But at least what we have done is we have done modeling, analysis, and simulation of this surgery. Yeah, that's what we have done. But then let me go to the next case, that is a dental case, and how this 3D printing helpful for the placement of the implant for one of the patient. So the challenge here for the conventional dentist. So as we know that even in a lifetime, you might have undergone some taking some impression. Once you go to the dentist, they will take an impression from the mouth, right? So they will prepare a dental cast based on that, maybe plaster of Paris kind of material. They will take the impression from the mouth. But I need a information which is a nerve inside the bone, right? So then if you take the impression, you will get only the outer surface information, but my nerve is inside. So why you are talking about the nerve means if a dentist is over drilling, so while fixing, so which you can see this patient required two implants, and he has to fix, he has to drill a hole, and he has to fix these kind of implants onto the mouth. Then what could be the depth, and what could be the orientation, and what could be the size? Otherwise they will be having a standard sizes of these implants, but that is not the solution, right? So that's what where your 3D printing or additive manufacturing is playing a vital role. You can make an customized, custom size, custom specific to this patient, right? So that's the beauty of 3D printing. And of course the it is also creating an opportunity for the dentist coming out of the box thinking, or the technology is giving an opportunity for he or she to even see before the surgery where that nerve will be there. But anyway, we have to start with the CT MRI, as I already mentioned. So each medical data you take as a DICOM image from the CT or MRI scanner, and then further do segmentation in the software and do a model reconstruction, segmentation of the density masks, and create the STL file. And further, you can use a 3D printer to print this, and where we can clearly see that. And nowadays, this we have done almost 12, 13 years back, the surgery. But now you have very good transparent materials, so which even very beautifully you can show this how this the root canal or the alveolar or inferior canal is passing from this condyle portion and coming from this and touching this mental foramen, and then again it will come and it will come out. So then you can print these models and let it be given to the dentist, and where he or she can play you can do a rehearsal rather than onto this patient specific models, and then what could be the size. Then you can come out with the the size, shape, orientation, depth, everything, right? So that's the opportunity. So then directly you can go to the operation theater and then even I was there personally in this surgery. So then you can do this kind of thing. So why? Because you have already done, your confidence levels are different. Otherwise, they should have taken some standard implant and then they should have fixed it. But this is an opportunity, and immediately, which you can see whether it got fixed properly or not. They will be having some X-rays, handheld X-rays, portable X-rays. Just you can take an X-ray image and check it whether this got fixed properly or not, this implant. So then so that is an opportunity for the dentist to make planning the surgery, or even you can fabricate the custom specific implant for patient specific data. And of course, mandibular distraction osteogenesis, this is one of the bone reconstructive surgery we have done for one of the child, the 8-year-old girl, and which we can see there is an abnormality by birth itself. She got this kind of abnormality. So because of that, normal opening of the mouth is 4 to 5 centimeters. But she could not get such kind of a full opening of the mouth. And more or less, it is an asymmetric in bone growth of the lower jaw especially. So then what we need to do, so then we need to reconstruct this, and in such a way that ensuring the symmetric appearance of the patient. And we have to start with the CT data again with the Mimics, and we have used the Mimics software and Thematic also for reconstructing this. And then they use a kind of distracting device. This distractor device, what they will do is they will keep it fix it here in the mouth. Maybe this is internal and sometimes it may be external also. So depending on the patient condition, then we can fix it as a exterior or a interior, and then bone will be having its growth, natural growth. So it will start growing it. So then this through this screw rotation, so then you can guide that bone growth. So with this device called distractor. So that's what it's called, and it's lower jaw. So mandibular distraction osteogenesis means you are doing the bone distraction through that device called distractor, and this procedure called osteogenesis. So then we 3D printed that lower jaw of the lower jaw and upper jaw, so which you can see. Otherwise, it should be symmetric, in which you can see it should be twisted. Means there will be a less growth on this side, and this will be okay. Then we can take a mirror option here. So we have a symmetric defect here. So some extent, but still it is not okay. But then what we can do is by using this model. So if it is a perfect a patient without no abnormality, it should be a semicircle, or at least maybe like Hrithik Roshan and Aishwarya Rai may be having a perfect semicircle. But anyway, so this is the what where we can see, and if you see one view, and which we need to do, we need to twist it, and further we cut it, and then we fix the distractor to guide the bone growth. This is what we need to do it, twist it. And then if you see this Ramus height is, of course, we have to bring this Ramus height also equivalent to this, right? So this is what the without disease, or the without this is a survived geometry, and this is a defected geometry. So then which we need to stretch this bone up to this and then twist it, and that's what we need to do. And that's what from the initial state, and then during the what you call the following it up period, and maybe after some time, maybe after 1.5 months or so, 2 months or so, and which you can see still there is a distractor here, but it will be removed after that. But during that period, so then she has to turn this say for example 1 rotation per day typically. So then the total growth of the bone, which for this case is around 21 mm. So that should be stretched. The bone should be 21 mm over the period of time. So that's what from the initial state to the final state. But still we can see, but this is at the last stage which we took the photograph, but still there is a kind of deviation, but there is a reason for that. Why? Because the bone growth will be there up to teenage. So then this she's having 80-year-old. So then once she turns 18, 19, means once the her completion of her teenage. So then final correction should be done. So that's the thing where you can use this 3D printing technology for helping or for guiding this kind of a reconstructive surgery in case how it will be useful. That's our personal experience with the doctors. And then this case is a cancerous a tumor because of taking the tobacco products. This is a cancerous case. That is a amyloblastic fibroma of mandible, that is a lower jaw, so which we can see this portion. This is because of this amyloblastic fibroma of mandible. So that is a cancerous the tumorous part which we need to cut this portion, and he is around a 21 year old patient. But which what we can do is we can take we can mirror it, and then we can use the tool the software tools to know exactly mimic or how much portion we are going to cut it, and from that other side portion, so then you can mirror it and then design the implant and fix it. That's what so we have come out with different designs of this implant after cutting. So this is what simulation in the software, where we can see like this much portion we need to cut, and if you cut it, and then you see it's going to be, and further we have printed a small PLA part to check whether it is correct or not, and further we have printed in the metal, so with the lattice structure also, in order to improve the osseo integration, at the same time reducing the weight of the implant. And of course everything we have done, but we got struck like just like that we cannot implant these things into the human body. There will be a lot of certification, though we will be taking some declaration from the patients, but still there will be a lot of clearances and a lot of certification should be taken, and it should be the surgery should be done in the presence of some committee. So a lot of procedures. It is not just like that, but some people may be doing no unofficially. That is different story. But if you talk about the actual procedure or the on paper procedure, so then it's not that much easy. Just like that, you can use you can print your own implant and fixing it. But we got stuck at that point of time. But even though we could able to print it through powder bed system, this is a titanium 6-4 material, and we have come out with different designs, and finally they are satisfied with this. Why? Because with the osseo integration also it's possible with this. If somebody is interested, you can refer this journal paper also. So then what we have done at least is then they will be using some standard steel plates to using during the surgery kind of stuff. And then but at least these models are helpful for them, how much exactly where they need to cut. And then after cutting that portion, normally they will take a bone graft, means they will take the own patient bone, that is the fibula bone. So you have a tibia and fibula which will join from your knee to the ankle. So there will be two bones, and one bone is exclusively for taking the loads, that is tibia, and you have another one is a fibula. So then they have done the conventional surgery, like where you can see during the surgery it got removed exactly how much portion through the 3D printed model which we previously printed, and then like that. And this is what I'm talking about. And they have done conventional, and then they have done the bone grafting. But because of that bone grafting, still the problem is not solved. They are saying recently, can we revisit the surgery by using that the implants? Why? Because afterwards it has happened 3 years back, but after that we have successfully implanted 3 to 4 implantations. So then but that's what I'm trying to say. The conventional surgeries may not be 100% successful, maybe having some they cannot bone graft exactly the size and the geometry of the original thing. But at least some extent, if you have a 3D printing technology, and then you are taken your data from the patient specific, it's exactly going to fit into the patient, right? So that's the advantage which you're going to get it. And the next case is the TMJ oncologist. That is nothing but so this patient had a problem. So by birth, as her TMJ means temporal mandibular joint. That is, you have a lower jaw here, and then you have a upper jaw, and there will be a joint here, right? It's like a free. It should be articulated freely. So if you see that, there won't be any tight connection. So it should be freely, mobile, something like our mechanical joint, right? So you have a disc, then it should be. But because she got born with that fusing of by birth, her joint got fused, but fortunately one side, but not on the other side. But that has given hope for us, like to copy this and taking the exact same dimensions and geometry and the form from other side, and then we could be able to, we have done in that fashion. But basically, even there is one more problem also because of that fusion. So there is a no alignment problem also there, teeth alignment. So it will go to the two surgeries. First, initially we need to do a distractive osteogenesis previously, which we have done for the girl, the same procedure which we need to adapt for getting teeth aligned, and further we need to fuse that joint, and we need to replicate, design the joint, and then fabricate the implant, and then it is fixing. So that's the thing which we need to do. So anyway, this is what the fusion has happened. Otherwise, it should be free. It should be freely articulated. So, but because of that birth defect, she got fused. So for the past 20 years, she has been surviving in that fashion. But we took the uh, risk to at least let us see like how it can be. If it clicks, okay, she will get a new life to her. Otherwise, she has been there for the past 20 years. So, but anyway, it's a successful story then. Yeah. So then what they do is like, this is the initial, I'm talking about distraction osteogenesis procedure. What they do is, so they will stretch this bone, they will stretch forward this bone. So once you stretch forward this bone, so that is 19 mm and 21 mm on the other side. So once you stretch it with this length, so the bone will grow automatically. It will be having its bone growth property, natural bone growth, and again depends on age, sex, and other factors. The bone growth will be so. But this is what for this case, and then once this happened, so up to that you will be keeping this distractor, and with this maybe over the period of 3 or 4 months, so it is getting this kind of stretched bone and the grown growth, and then it will be getting set. So this is the first surgery. So this is during the surgery, and this, which you can see, this is a distractor and leaving it for up to that bone growth has happened. And this is before the surgery, and this is after the surgery, where you can see it's got. So one surgery is over, and next surgery should be, if you have this, it should be fused, right? So then we need to do that releasing that fusing of this portion I'm talking about. So which we can see, still you may get doubt why these images are like this. So this, because of that distractor previously there, then once you have some implant or some metal, so you will be getting this kind of noise in your CT data. So that's the reason. But anyway, so then we need to yeah, so as I already mentioned, this the copying the survived condyle and the disc and the zygomatic arch. There's a lower jaw, upper jaw, lower jaw, and then this disc part. So then we exactly taken or the transferred the same dimensions and the form and the geometry from survived portion to other side, and then we designed, and then further we printed initially in the desktop printer just for checking the prototype or the fitment of it. And even this is what I'm talking about, the fusa or the disc part. And this disc part, again taking the help of the survived dimensions, and then yeah, which you can see. So we'll be copying the same thing from survived side to the defect side, or which we are going to cut this portion, and which we are going to disturb this joint. That's what, no other way. Why? Because it got fused, and no other way we need to yeah, this is what I'm talking about. So during the surgery, what they're going to do, so they cut this portion and you disturb this joint, the upper jaw, called, this is zygomatic arch, and this is a fossa component, and this is the condyle portion which will come from the lower jaw, and this is upper jaw, and this is the joint, and this is what I'm talking about. This entire thing is going to be this is a model derived from the CT data, and then these are the implants designed in the software and further printed in the polymer, checking for the placement and the fitment. And this is what, after that, the metal parts, metal, again it's a titanium 6.4, and it's a powder bed system used to print this, and then further we need to do wherever you have load falling, and then which we need to have a mirror finish, and actual finish we are going to get like this from this powder bed system kind of thing. So then, which we have done some post processing then for where it's going to fit it. But if you make this also metal, so then you will be having a metal to metal contact, and there will be a lot of friction, but that should be avoided. Because of that reason, this is the biocompatible polymer, which has got printed again 3D printing only, and then this is the metal 3D printer. And even we have designed a guide also. Why? Because they are going to fix this implant onto the bone. So then, just like that, they cannot drill a holes on these bone. So then we need to have some support to, and then using that support or the guide or a template. So then they can go for the, yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Say then we designed a template for fixing it, and even we have filed a patent, US patent for this case. And further, and this is during the surgery where we can see, even I'm there personally, and he's Ian Gibson. He's the book author of additive manufacturing. Probably people might have followed his book also. It's a one additive manufacturing book by Ian Gibson, and he is my JRF and my PhD scholar also afterwards. And we have attended this surgery personally. And then I have conducted a GIAN course. I have invited him in one of the GIAN courses. During that time, we planned this surgery. Yeah, and then we have we were very well there, and which we can see that after a few once you release that fused joint, and which we can see this is a 4 mm of the 4 centimeter opening of the mouth is attained. So because of that fusion, so even she could not open her mouth right from the birth. She used to take only the liquids, because even say less than 1 centimeter, or that was the scenario. But now she's this is what I'm talking about. Whatever the 3D printed implants, it is very well is implanted inside this. Yeah, this is the lady which you can see, and this is the upper jaw I'm talking about, lower jaw, and this is the disc portion, and this is the implants, and which you can see. She could now open to normal opening of the mouth, that is 4 to 5 centimeters, and normal chewing and normal biting force she could attain. So that's what we, at least what for the past 20 years she has been like that. But with this, at least our societal life has improved. So, and this we have done 2.5 years back. But so far so good, nothing has happened. But before fixing it, we have done several tests on this, whether it will come out. So then we have done several precautions, or as per the ASTM standards also we have tested for the kind of failure of this joint. Yeah. So then let me talk with my last case study, and then I will close the session. So then, so there is a indigenous implant we have designed and fabricated and fixed for one of the patient. This is again, it is an accident case actually. So the accident case, he lost 5 teeth, and along with the teeth, he lost the bone also. So like how you are talking about one nerve or the canal, a root canal is there at the passing from the lower jaw, and similar case for the upper jaw also, we are going to have some nerve also here in the upper jaw. So then what we need to, then we have to do the nerve relieving is also another challenge for this case. Why? Because he lost the bone along with the teeth. So then, and then if there is a bone support, and then like what we have done for the dental case previously, then there is a support, and then we can fix the standard four or five if it accommodate, and then we can fix the implants, and then further you can fix the crowns. But there is no support here, right? Then in that case, we have to go for our own indigenous implant design and fabrication, and then finally fixing it. But these are the conventional basal implants where in this case it won't work out. So that's what we have come out. And that too, this defect or this fracture is not a symmetric fracture. So it is a asymmetric fracture. So then we need to design the implant as for the condition of the patient, and where you can see the different lengths and different diameters of this implant on the two sides of the abutment portion, and which is getting connected through this. And then we have tested for the failure of this implant for the normal maximum biting, maximum chewing force for the patient whether it will withstand or not. So we've done that analysis also. And then this is what uh, before going to the actual the implant metal implant printing, just we even printed the bone as well as the implant through a PLA ordinary desktop 3D printer. Just we want to check it whether it is correct, intact, it is going or not. And then during the surgery they will cut, and this is a snap kind of a fit. So just it will be it doesn't require any other screws or even to fix it. So then the design is in that such a way, and then even they are going to fix it during the surgery here, and all that rehearsal is done. And of course this is what it's going to be, but at least we could not able to accommodate 5 teeth, and it's a 4 teeth as accommodated. So this is before surgery, the kind of rehearsaling the surgery on that models. And this is the metal implant, which it is again a titanium 64 in a metal 3D printer powder bed system we printed. And this is the supports actually. And after removing the supports and post processing, and this is what the implanted. And this is during the surgery where we can see. So it is getting fitted. So which you can see, it's got very snap fit. It has gone inside, and where you were previously, which I showed, like that 4 teeth will come here, and along with the abutment, so it will be fitted. And this case study we have published in one of the best journals in the additive manufacturing area, that is Rapid Prototyping Journal from the Emerald publishers. The SEA journal is the best SEA journal in this domain. So then this is what. Yeah, this is I'm talking about. Say, which you can see the on backside of it, you have that implant. Yeah, this is what right after that implantation and the surgery. So then this is the image of your implant, which is positioned. And top of it, these are the crowns, or the ceramic artificial tooth will be fitted on to that. And even you can have a lot of scope to work, but not all the cases are suitable. Maybe, say for example, this is a long term a tumor case, which you can see. Then okay, then you can take up and then you can solve it. And this is the cleft case, as you know, that by birth this is the problem. So then maybe 3D printing can help you help them in this kind of situations. But some emergency cases, some accident case, serious head injury, and a lot of blood has lost. But that may be the case. Like they may be asking, doctor may be asking, can you make the entire skull within half an hour or 1 hour or so? But it's quite impossible to fabricate such kind of taking up such kind of emergency
Sir,
cases. Yes. Hello.
sir, next session start at 12 o'clock, sir.
Yeah, I will be closing
Okay.
it. Okay. So this is my last slide. This is my last slide.
Okay.
Yes. So we are running short of time. So anyway, I'm on to the time. So then let me conclude the session with the. So far whatever we are talking, that may be the bone substitute, right? So it may be a oral maxillofacial, it may be orthopedic, or it can be any other part. It's basically a bone replacement. But what is going to be the feature? It's going to be the organ printing or bioprinting. They will extract your own cell, or the patient own cell, and then they will add the proteins to the extracted cell, and they will do cell cultivation. Of course, you are very much familiar about cell cultivation. They do that, and they will put it in incubator, and then they will test it for the mechanical and other properties through the bioreactors, and then they will again inject print it into the human. Either it is the repair of the surgery, or it can be a replacement of the surgery. So it's quite a good number of breakthroughs are happening. Like a gallbladder is already printed, taken the patient own cell, and then it got printed. And then you can see a lot of developments maybe towards other complex organs. So anyway, I don't have time, but anyway, this is a summary whatever I have been talking about for the past 1 hour 15 minutes. So and then I would like to acknowledge before closing my session where we have a very good team of doctors, where we have been working with them, like Dr. Shekhar Reddy and Aditya Mohan from Panya Dental Sciences and Research Center at Hyderabad, and for dental cases, P. Mahesh from Nellore Dental College, and of course for the financial support of two of my projects. One is the DST and SCRB. So I mentioned here as the file details also. So I would like to acknowledge financially what they have supported for my research. And of course, last but not the least, my UG, PG, and PhD scholars. You might have seen the citations of the papers. This is the two of my PhD scholars' work. So I would like to acknowledge, who are all there directly or indirectly in these cases they've involved in this. So that's all my presentation. I am handing over to Dr. Mani to take up some questions, or I don't know what is the plan, but anyway, that's all from my side.
Thank you, sir. Dear participant, if you ask any type of queries, any type of questions in this session.
Good morning, sir. Sir, I have a question. In medical sector, which type of material used for the 3D printing?
Medical means, again, that depends on whether you are using it for the permanent implant. So then whatever I have discussed in my presentation, we have used titanium 6-4. That is the metal.
Titanium 6-4.
Yes. Titanium alloy with 6 aluminum and 4 vanadium. 6-4. Titanium 6-4. Then you can have 6-4. Titanium 6-4. And then you can go with cobalt chrome also, biocompatible material, and even you can have other polymers also, PEEK or ceramics also. But depends, but this is a bone replacement, so it requires high strength. Then we have gone for the titanium 6-4. Yes, so that should be 3D printable also. That is one more constraint, right? So then,
okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Any other questions from participants? Anything? Very nice session, sir.
Thank you.
About the medical field, how to make a product, and also how to surgery in a particular place. Very clearly explanation for all the parts, sir. Thank you. We have a wonderful session for this, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the opportunity.
Any other participant?
Yeah.
If you ask any type of questions to clarify about anything. Anything else? Okay, thank you, participant. All of you. Thank you for the session, sir. Now
Thank
it's
you.
for photo. Thank you, sir. Now it's photo session. So all the participants to unmute the video.
Then I had to share my presentation. That also there, na? Let me down. I thought I can stop it, but anyway, I will be sharing once again. Yeah, 1 minute.
Okay.
First slide is sufficient.
Yes, yes, sir. Okay, sir.
Is it coming? The slide?
It's coming, sir. It's coming.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the
Thank you.
session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Mani, for giving
Thank you,
me
sir.
the opportunity for
Sir,
the 2
cooperating
sessions.
for all
Yeah.
within the
Yes,
time
yes.
to finish everything, sir.
But except that technical glitch, I don't
Okay,
know
some of the
why it is
technical is
happening.
there, sir. There is no problem.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Bye. Bye. Thank you. Thank
Okay,
you.
sir.
Thank you, one
Thank
and
you,
all.
sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.